You know that feeling. It is 3 in the afternoon, and you are staring at a screen, a blank page, a half-finished project. Just yesterday, you were fired up, full of ideas, ready to conquer the world. But today, nothing. That initial spark, that wave of excitement you called motivation, has vanished without a trace, leaving you feeling drained and defeated. It is a universal experience, this crash after the high, this frustrating wall we all hit when the emotional fuel tank reads empty. We have been taught to chase that feeling, to believe that without it, we cannot move forward, that we are simply stuck. But what if that entire approach is flawed? What if the very thing we are relying on, motivation, is the weakest link in our chain? This is where an ancient, far more powerful form of strength comes into play. It is not a fleeting emotion, but a disciplined, unshakable readiness. The Stoics, philosophers like the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius and the former slave Epictetus, called it by many names: virtue, reason, inner citadel. But for our purposes today, we will call it your mental ammunition. While motivation is external and unreliable, something that comes and goes with your mood or your circumstances, mental ammunition is something you build within yourself, piece by piece. It is a stockpile of principles, premeditated responses, and practiced disciplines that you can rely on when everything else fails. It is the difference between waiting for a favorable wind to set sail and knowing how to navigate skillfully through any storm. In this video, we are going to embark on a journey to move beyond the fragile crutch of motivation and learn how to forge this lasting, internal power. We will start by understanding exactly why motivation so often lets us down, framing it through the crucial Stoic lens of control. Then we will delve into the core of Stoic practice, unpacking the 3 key disciplines that form your fundamental mental ammunition: the discipline of assent to guard your judgments, the discipline of desire to align your goals with what is truly within your power, and the discipline of action to engage with the world purposefully. We will explore powerful mental exercises like premeditating challenges and learning to love your fate, tools that transform obstacles into fuel. This is not about empty inspiration. This is about providing you with practical, actionable insights drawn from 2,000 years of proven wisdom. By the end of our time together, you will have a clear understanding of how to build your own arsenal, creating a source of strength that no bad day, no failed project, and no external circumstance can ever take away from you. So let's get right to the heart of the problem. What exactly is this thing we call motivation? At its core, it is an emotional state. It is that surge of excitement, that wave of enthusiasm you feel when you start a new diet, launch a business idea, or set an ambitious fitness goal. It feels incredible, like a powerful tailwind pushing you forward. But here is the critical flaw: because it is an emotion, it is inherently tied to external circumstances. It depends on how well you slept last night, whether you received positive feedback if the sun is shining, or if you just had a great cup of coffee. And just like any emotion, happiness, sadness, anger, it is temporary. It comes and it goes, completely outside of your direct command. You cannot will yourself to feel motivated any more than you can will yourself to feel joyous on a difficult day. Relying on motivation, then, is like building your house on a foundation of sand. It might feel solid for a moment, but the first storm will wash it away. This is where the Stoics offer a revolutionary way of thinking. They introduced a simple but profound tool called the Dichotomy of control. It is the practice of dividing everything in our lives into 2 distinct categories: what is within our complete control and what is not. On one side, firmly within your power, are your own judgments, your values, your desires, and your actions, the choices your character makes. On the other side, entirely outside your control, are your reputation, your wealth, your health, and yes, even your passing feelings and emotions like motivation. The Stoics would classify motivation as what they call a preferred indifferent. It is nice to have when it shows up. It can make the journey more pleasant, but it is not essential. It is indifferent to your ultimate goal, which is living with virtue and reason. Chasing it, demanding it, or waiting for it is a recipe for frustration because you are trying to command something that was never yours to command in the first place. This stands in stark contrast to the Stoic ideal of action. The Stoic does not act because they feel like it. They act because it is the right thing to do. Their drive comes from a deep-seated sense of duty and a commitment to reason, regardless of the emotional weather happening inside them. Imagine a firefighter rushing into a burning building. They are not feeling motivated, they are likely feeling fear, but their training, their principles, their duty, their mental ammunition propels them forward. Their action is born from purpose, not from a fleeting emotion. The philosopher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and faced immense hardship, put it perfectly. He said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go well." This is the ultimate shift. Instead of waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect mood, the perfect motivation to strike before you act, you learn to act with excellence no matter what conditions you face. You wish for reality to be as it is, and then you bring your best effort to that reality. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Think of a time you succeeded at something important without feeling particularly motivated. Maybe it was studying for a final exam when you were exhausted, or completing a tedious report for work when you would have rather been anywhere else, or even just getting out of bed on a cold, dark morning to care for a loved one. What was it that got you through? It was not a surge of emotion. It was likely something deeper, a sense of responsibility, a commitment to a goal, a personal standard you hold yourself to, or simply the understanding that it needed to be done. That right there is the seed of your mental ammunition. That is the quiet, steady force of will that the Stoics championed, a force that remains long after the noisy fireworks of motivation have fizzled out. So if motivation is this unreliable weather pattern of the mind, what do we build in its place? We build an arsenal. We stockpile mental ammunition. This is the core metaphor for the Stoic alternative. Think of it not as a feeling you hope to have, but as a set of tools and resources you consciously cultivate within yourself. Mental ammunition consists of your core principles, the philosophical truth you hold to be self-evident. It includes your premeditated responses to common challenges. You have already decided how you will react to criticism, to failure, to boredom, long before you ever face them. And most importantly, it is made up of your practiced virtues, the habits of character like courage, justice, and temperance that you have strengthened through repetition. This is not a passive state of being, it is an active, prepared mindset. While motivation asks, "How do I feel?" mental ammunition asks, "What principle applies here?" This shift is fundamental. It moves you from being a passenger on an emotional roller coaster to being the engineer of your own mind. The Stoics had a word for this process of building your ammunition, ascesis. It translates to disciplined practice or training. It is the same word used for an athlete's rigorous daily regimen. An athlete does not wait to feel motivated to train. They follow their schedule regardless of how they feel, because they know that consistency is what builds championship-level strength. In the same way, building mental ammunition is a form of daily psychological and ethical training. It is the small, consistent choices you make, pausing before reacting in anger, choosing integrity when cutting a corner would be easier, focusing on your effort rather than obsessing over the outcome. This is not about grand, sweeping gestures. It is about the quiet, relentless practice of aligning your actions with your principles day after day, and this practice is grounded in deep philosophical understanding. You are not just repeating affirmations, you are internalizing a worldview, a way of seeing your place in the universe that makes this disciplined effort meaningful. The ultimate goal of this entire endeavor for the Stoics was a state of flourishing known as Eudaimonia. This is not mere happiness, which is as fleeting as motivation. Eudaimonia is a profound and lasting sense of fulfillment and inner peace that comes from living a life of virtue. It is the result of having a soul that is well-ordered and aligned with nature and reason. Mental ammunition is the very thing that secures this state. Your inner fortitude, your stockpile of principles, is what allows you to maintain your tranquility and purpose even when external circumstances are chaotic. Your flourishing becomes independent of what happens to you. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this idea powerfully when he wrote, "The mind is the ruler of one's life." It is not events that dictate the quality of your life, but the judgments and principles your mind employs to meet those events. Your mind, fortified with the right ammunition, can rule over any circumstance, not as a tyrant, but as a wise and steady sovereign. This leads to a crucial question for you to ponder right now. If mental ammunition is your personal arsenal of principles and practiced responses, what does your current mental arsenal consist of? When a project at work goes sideways, what is the first principle you reach for? Is it a fear of failure, a tendency to blame others, or is it a pre-considered commitment to learning and adapting? When you face a tedious task, what is your go-to response? Is it procrastination, fueled by a lack of motivational feeling, or is it the disciplined understanding that small, consistent actions build toward significant results? Taking an honest inventory of your current inner resources is the first step toward consciously strengthening them. You may find that you already have some ammunition you did not realize you possessed, a sense of duty, a commitment to your family, a personal standard of excellence. And you will likely identify areas where your arsenal is thin, where you have been relying on the hope for motivation instead of the power of prepared principle. Recognizing both is the beginning of building something far more durable and reliable than any passing mood could ever be. This brings us to one of the most powerful images in all of Stoic thought, a concept that perfectly captures the essence of mental ammunition, the analogy of the Stoic archer. Picture a master archer. They have spent years in training, honing their craft. They select the perfect arrow, feel the tension of the bowstring, take a steadying breath, and focus all their attention on the target. With a clear mind and a skilled hand, they release the arrow. It flies straight and true, but then, a sudden gust of wind, completely unpredictable, pushes the arrow just enough that it misses the bullseye by a hair. Now here is the crucial question: was the archer a failure? According to the Stoics, the answer is a resounding no. The archer's true goal was not to hit the target. That final outcome was always partially dependent on factors outside of their control: the wind, the quality of the arrow, even a sudden movement in the crowd. The archer's only true, sovereign goal was to execute the shot to the very best of their ability. Their success was measured by the quality of their aim, their form, their focus, and their discipline in the moment of release. Everything that happened after the arrow left the bow was a matter of fortune, and fortune is not ours to command. The Roman orator Cicero, who helped translate these Greek philosophical ideas for a Roman audience, presented this analogy beautifully. He explained that just as the archer's purpose is to shoot skillfully, our purpose in life is to live skillfully, to act with virtue and reason. The final outcome, whether it is wealth, fame, or even the successful completion of a project, is like that target. We should prefer to hit it, but our worth and our success are not defined by it. This is a monumental shift in perspective, and it lies at the very heart of building your mental ammunition. When we rely on motivation, we are essentially waiting for a day with no wind. We delay our shot, hoping for perfect conditions for a guaranteed hit. We tie our sense of accomplishment and our willingness to act to an outcome we can never fully control. This is why motivation is so fragile. It shatters the moment the wind changes. The Stoic approach embodied by the archer flips this entirely. Your mental ammunition is not about guaranteeing hits, it is about perfecting your aim. It is the daily practice of virtue, the courage to take the shot even when you are afraid of missing, the justice in how you treat your fellow archers, the temperance to not let the desire for a bull's eye corrupt your form, and the wisdom to know the difference between your shot and the wind. Think about how this applies to your own life. You are working on an important business proposal. Your aim is the quality of your research, the clarity of your writing, the integrity of your numbers, the effort you put into the presentation. That is your shooting well. The target is getting the approval, winning the contract, receiving the praise. That is the outcome. If you have built your mental ammunition, you pour all of your focus and energy into the aiming, into the virtuous action of doing the work excellently for its own sake. You control your effort, your honesty, your diligence. Then you release the arrow. The client's mood, a competitor's last-minute offer, a shifting market. These are the wins. If you hit the target, you can accept it with gratitude as a preferred outcome. But if you miss, your entire sense of self is not destroyed. You do not crumble because your success was never solely dependent on the hit. It was rooted in the knowledge that you shot well. You performed with virtue. This is what makes you resilient. This is what frees you from the roller coaster of external validation. So let me ask you directly, and this is a question worth sitting with for a moment. In your own life, where is your focus primarily directed? Are you spending most of your mental energy on your aim, on the things within your control, like your preparation, your attitude, your ethical choices, your consistent effort? Or are you exhausting yourself by staring at targets you cannot guarantee, like specific outcomes, other people's opinions, or perfect conditions? The constant anxiety we so often feel is a telltale sign that we are focusing on the target. We worry about the result, we stress over what might go wrong, we get discouraged when things do not turn out as planned. But the archer who is focused on their aim experiences a profound sense of calm and agency. They are too absorbed in the process, in the quality of their own action, to be overly troubled by the whims of the wind. This is the tranquility that comes from a well-stocked arsenal of mental ammunition. It is the peace of knowing that you have done your part, and that your part, your virtuous aim, is enough. Now we come to the first and perhaps most critical piece of mental ammunition you can ever possess, the Stoic discipline of assent. Think of your mind as a fortified gate, and every single impression, every thought that enters your consciousness is a visitor seeking entry. The discipline of assent is the trained guard at that gate. Its job is not to stop visitors from arriving, that is impossible, but to pause and question each one before allowing it inside. It is that crucial moment of space, that split second of awareness between something happening and you reacting to it. This is the power to withhold your automatic agreement, to challenge your initial, often emotional, interpretation of events. Without this guard, every negative impression, every fearful thought, every judgmental assumption marches right in and makes itself at home, influencing your emotions and actions before you even realize what has happened. With this discipline, you take back sovereignty over your inner world. The foundational principle here, one that the Stoics return to again and again, is that events themselves are neutral. They are just data points, facts of existence. It is the judgment we attach to them that gives them power, and more often than not, that power is destructive. A rainy day is not inherently bad. It is your judgment that it has ruined your plans that creates the feeling of disappointment. A critical comment from your boss is just a string of words. It is your judgment that it means you are incompetent or that your job is at risk that sends you into a spiral of anxiety. The event is one thing. The story you tell yourself about the event is everything. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his private journal, offered a remarkably concise formula for this. He said, "Remove the judgment, and you have removed the thought, 'I am hurt.' Remove the thought, 'I am hurt,' and the hurt itself is removed. The pain does not come from the event. It comes from your assent to the judgment that the event is harmful." The discipline of assent is the tool that performs this removal. Let us make this incredibly practical with a modern example. Imagine you have just sent a detailed project proposal to your entire team, and one colleague replies all with a brief, blunt email pointing out a single flaw. Your initial impression, the visitor at the gate, might be a hot rush of embarrassment and anger. The unexamined judgment that wants immediate entry is, "This is a personal attack. They are trying to humiliate me in front of everyone. I am incompetent and now everyone knows it." If you grant this impression immediate assent, if you let the guard step aside, that judgment floods your system. Your heart races, your face flushes, and you are likely to fire off a defensive or equally sharp reply, damaging the team dynamic and your own reputation. This is the reactive life, the life lived without mental ammunition. Now, let us replay that scenario with the discipline of assent activated. The same email arrives. The same initial impression of embarrassment and anger knocks at the gate, but this time the guard pauses. You create a moment of space. You consciously question the impression. You might ask yourself, is this truly a personal attack? Could it be that my colleague is simply direct and focused on efficiency? Is it possible they are trying to help, even if their method is poor? By pausing, you introduce reason into the equation. You separate the neutral event, a colleague identified an error, from the judgment you were about to attach to it. This pause allows you to choose a different, more rational judgment. Perhaps you decide, this is feedback on my work, not on my character. The error is a fact. Correcting it will make the project stronger. With this new, reasoned judgment, your emotional response transforms. The embarrassment subsides. You can now respond professionally, thanking your colleague for their sharp eye and correcting the mistake. The outcome is better for everyone, and your inner peace remains intact. This is the discipline of assent in action. It is not about suppressing emotion. It is about intercepting the automatic judgment that creates the emotion in the first place, giving you the freedom to choose your response based on principle, not on impulse. Now, if the discipline of assent is the guard at the gate of your mind, then the second piece of essential ammunition, the discipline of desire, is the compass for your entire life's journey. This is about where you direct your energy, your hopes, and your deepest wants. A common misunderstanding of Stoicism is that it teaches us to crush our desires, to live a life of grim austerity, wanting nothing. But that is not it at all. The Stoics were not advocating for a joyless existence. Instead, they proposed a brilliant and far more liberating alternative, the redirection of desire. It is not about wanting less, but about wanting better, wanting the right things. The discipline of desire is about consciously aiming your innate human capacity for wanting toward the only things that can ever truly satisfy you, the things that are unequivocally and permanently within your power, your own character, your judgments, your values, and your virtuous actions. Contrast this with the way most of us are taught to navigate the world. We are conditioned to desire external outcomes above all else. We want the promotion, the perfect relationship, the larger bank account, the social media accolades. We tie our happiness and our sense of self-worth to achieving these targets, but remember the lesson of the Stoic archer: those targets are subject to the wind. Chasing them is like chasing a mirage. You exhaust yourself running toward something you can never fully grasp or hold onto. This is the core source of so much of our frustration, anxiety, and disappointment. We are trying to control the uncontrollable. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and understood powerlessness intimately, opens his famous handbook, the Enchiridion, with this fundamental distinction. He says, some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions, impulses, desires, and aversions are up to us. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, and our public offices are not. The path to misery, he explains, is to desire things that are not up to us because you are setting yourself up for failure from the start. The discipline of desire flips this script. It asks you to make a profound internal shift. Instead of desiring the promotion itself, which depends on your boss's mood, the company's finances, a competitor's qualifications, you redirect that desire toward the internal qualities that make you deserving of a promotion. You desire to act with impeccable diligence, to be a supportive team member, to cultivate wisdom in your field, to demonstrate courage in taking on challenging tasks. Your goal is no longer the external reward, but the internal virtue required to earn it. This might sound like a subtle difference, but its effect is revolutionary. If you do not get the promotion, what have you lost? You have still achieved your true goal. You have become a more diligent, supportive, wise, and courageous person. Those are permanent gains, possessions that no one can ever take from you. The frustration of missing the external target is replaced by the quiet confidence of having shot your arrow with excellence. Your desire has been fulfilled because it was aimed at something you completely controlled. This realignment brings an incredible sense of clarity and peace. The frantic energy of trying to manipulate the world to get what you want dissipates. It is replaced by a calm, focused power that you direct inward. Your life is no longer a roller coaster of highs and lows dictated by external wins and losses. Instead, it becomes a steady, purposeful path of character development. Every situation, especially the difficult ones, becomes an opportunity to fulfill your desires. Stuck in traffic, perfect. This is a chance to practice the virtue of patience. Facing a difficult conversation, excellent. Here is an opportunity to practice courage and justice. The world ceases to be a source of obstacles to your happiness and becomes a gymnasium for your soul. Your desire is consistently satisfied because you are always achieving what you set out to achieve, the expression of virtue in the present moment. So let us bring this directly into your life with a simple but powerful exercise. Take a moment to identify one specific desire you are holding onto right now. It might be the desire to hit a certain number of followers on social media, to win an argument with a loved one, to finally buy that new car. Now apply the discipline of desire. Ask yourself, what is the external outcome I am chasing? Then, crucially, ask what internal virtue is connected to this. If your desire is for more followers, can you shift that desire to the virtue of creating genuinely valuable, insightful, or helpful content, regardless of the numbers? If your desire is to win the argument, can you redirect it toward the virtue of communicating with patience, understanding, and a genuine search for truth, even if it means conceding a point? If your desire is for the new car, can you transform it into a desire to practice temperance and gratitude for the reliable transportation you already possess? This is not about giving up on goals. It is about changing the nature of the goal itself, making it something that nourishes your character and remains forever in your control. What is one desire you can practice shifting in this way, starting today? So far, we have armed ourselves with the discipline of assent to guard our judgments and the discipline of desire to align our goals with what is truly within our power. These are profoundly internal practices, fortifying the mind against the chaos of the outside world. But Stoicism is not a philosophy of retreat. It is a philosophy of engaged, purposeful action. This brings us to the third and final core discipline, the one that directs our fortified character outward, the discipline of action. This is your ammunition for meaningful engagement with the world, the principle that connects your inner strength to a purpose far greater than yourself. If the first two disciplines are about getting your own house in order, the discipline of action is about how you then step out your front door and contribute to your neighborhood. The Stoics called this concept oikeiosis, a Greek term that describes our natural affinity and responsibility toward other human beings. It is the understanding that we are fundamentally social creatures, interconnected parts of a larger whole. Just as a hand serves the body, our actions are meant to serve the common good. This is not about being a passive bystander in life. It is about being an active, beneficial participant. Your actions, guided by virtue, become your contribution to the health and harmony of the whole human community. This transforms your daily efforts from mere tasks into meaningful service. Contrast this with acting solely from personal motivation. When your reason for working on a difficult project is just a bonus, a promotion, or personal recognition, what happens when that reward seems uncertain or far away? Your motivation, that external fuel, inevitably sputters. The work feels like a grind, but when your reason for action is rooted in the common good, you tap into a deeper, more resilient wellspring of purpose. You are no longer just working for yourself. You are working for your team, for your customers, for your family, for the simple principle of doing something well because it benefits others. This provides a steady, enduring reason to persevere that is completely independent of how you feel in any given moment. It makes you reliable both to yourself and to those who depend on you. Let's make this concrete with the example of a challenging team project. Imagine you are part of a group tasked with a complex, long-term assignment. The initial excitement has worn off, the deadline is looming, and the work has become tedious and frustrating. Your personal motivation has evaporated, you are tired, and the thought of putting in another late night is agonizing. If your only reason for continuing is that personal drive, you are likely to disengage, do the bare minimum, or even resent your teammates. Now, apply the discipline of action. You pause and consciously reconnect to the common good. You remember that your teammates are relying on your contribution. You think about the end user who will benefit from this completed project. You focus on the virtue of justice, fulfilling your role and your commitments fairly. Your reason for action shifts from, "I don't feel like doing this," to, "My team is counting on me, and it is the right thing to do." This sense of interconnected responsibility ignites a different kind of energy. It is not a fleeting emotion, but a principled commitment. It is the energy of duty, which is far more durable than the energy of mood. Marcus Aurelius, who had the immense responsibility of leading an entire empire, constantly reminded himself of this principle. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." This simple, powerful image captures the essence of the discipline of action. Your personal flourishing is inextricably linked to the flourishing of the communities you are a part of, your family, your workplace, your society. An action that harms the hive ultimately harms you, the individual bee. Conversely, an action that strengthens the hive strengthens your own position within it. Your virtuous action, therefore, is never wasted, even if it goes unrecognized. Its value is inherent in its contribution to the whole. This perspective infuses even the smallest, most mundane tasks with significance. Filing paperwork, cleaning a shared space, listening patiently to a colleague, these are not just chores. They are small acts of maintenance for the hive, expressions of your role within the interconnected system of humanity. This discipline completes the triad of your fundamental mental ammunition. The discipline of assent ensures you see events clearly. The discipline of desire ensures your aims are true and within your control. And the discipline of action ensures your energy is directed purposefully and beneficially outward. Together, they form a self-reinforcing system. A clear judgment leads to a virtuous desire, which in turn leads to a right action for the common good. This is the engine of a Stoic life, a source of purpose that makes the search for motivational highs completely obsolete. You are not waiting to feel inspired. You are too busy fulfilling your role, doing your part, and acting as a rational, social being was meant to act. Now, let's turn to a piece of mental ammunition that might seem counterintuitive at first, but is among the most powerful tools for building resilience: the Stoic practice of Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils or misfortunes. This is not about fostering a gloomy, pessimistic outlook on life. On the contrary, it is a proactive and highly strategic exercise designed to inoculate your mind against the shocks of adversity. Think of it as a fire drill for the soul. You do not conduct a fire drill because you are certain the building will burn down. You do it so that if the alarm ever sounds, you do not panic. You know the exits, you have rehearsed the steps, and you can act with calm, purposeful clarity. Premeditatio Malorum is exactly that, a mental fire drill where you deliberately and calmly imagine the challenges, setbacks, or losses that could potentially occur. The profound genius of this practice works in two powerful ways. First, it serves as a powerful antidote to taking the present moment for granted. By consciously imagining the loss of something you value, be it your health, your job, a cherished relationship, or even your comfort, you instantly snap yourself into a state of deep gratitude for the fact that you have it right now. Seneca brilliantly advised his friend Lucilius to do just this. He wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." And in another letter, he suggested rehearsing poverty, so that you might know that poverty is not an evil to be feared. By regularly contemplating the possibility of losing your material possessions, you cease to be enslaved by them. You enjoy them while they are here, but your happiness is no longer contingent upon their permanent presence. This practice robs fortune of its greatest weapon, the element of surprise. Second, and more importantly for our arsenal, Premeditatio Malorum is where you actively build and stockpile your specific responses to difficulty. It is in the quiet safety of your own mind that you rehearse applying your Stoic principles to real-world scenarios. This is where you move from theory to practical readiness. Let's take a very simple, relatable example: mentally preparing for a difficult conversation you need to have with a family member. Instead of anxiously avoiding the topic or hoping it will resolve itself, you set aside a few minutes of quiet time to premeditate the evils. You imagine the conversation going poorly. You visualize the other person becoming defensive, raising their voice, or saying something hurtful. But here is the crucial part: you do not stop at the negative outcome. You immediately rehearse your Stoic response. You apply the discipline of assent. Their anger is their judgment. It does not have to become mine. I will not assent to the impression that this is a catastrophe. You apply Amor Fati, which we will discuss next. This friction is an opportunity to practice patience and clarity. You focus on the discipline of action. My role is to communicate with justice and kindness, regardless of their reaction. I control my words and my intent, not their reception. By walking through this scenario in your mind, you are loading your mental ammunition belt with specific, pre-selected rounds. When you then enter the actual conversation, the emotional charge is significantly lower. If the person does react negatively, it is not a shocking, unforeseen disaster. It is a situation for which you are already prepared. You have already lived through a version of it and decided on your course of action. This does not make you cold or detached. It makes you composed and effective. Your calmness might even de-escalate the entire situation. The anxiety that normally would have paralyzed you is replaced by a quiet confidence because you have already faced the monster in the safety of your imagination and you know exactly how to handle it. This is how you build a resilience that is not about merely surviving blows, but about moving through difficulty with a sense of purpose and unshakable equipoise. But if Premeditatio Malorum is the fire drill preparing us for potential adversity, then Amor Fati is the philosophy we adopt when the flames are already around us. This Latin phrase, meaning a love of one's fate, is perhaps the most transformative piece of mental ammunition you can ever possess. It is not about passive resignation, merely gritting your teeth and enduring whatever life throws at you. That is fatalism, a quiet surrender to circumstance. Amor Fati is something far more active and powerful. It is the conscious, willing embrace of every single event, every obstacle, every twist of fortune, not as a burden to be borne, but as the essential raw material for your growth. It is the decision to not just accept what happens, but to love it because it is your path, the very thing you need to become who you are meant to be. Think of it as finding the why within any what. A setback is no longer just a random, annoying occurrence. It becomes a necessary lesson. A difficult person is not an inconvenience. They are a sparring partner sent to test and strengthen your patience and understanding. A failure is not a mark of shame. It is a data point guiding you toward a better strategy. This mindset is the complete antithesis of waiting for motivation. You are no longer waiting for the perfect conditions to act. Instead, you are finding a profound and immediate purpose in the conditions you have, however imperfect they may be. The obstacle itself becomes the fuel for your progress. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, famously captured this spirit when he wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it but love it. This is the ultimate affirmation of life, exactly as it is." This concept is deeply woven into the fabric of Stoicism. The Stoics believed in a rational, ordered universe. They called it logos. Within this framework, everything that happens is part of an interconnected web of cause and effect. While we may not understand the reasons in the moment, the Stoic chooses to trust that events, especially the difficult ones, are not meaningless punishments but opportunities tailored for the development of our soul. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this, urging himself to accept whatever the universal nature brings and to welcome it, because it is always beneficial to the whole. Epictetus, who lived a life of hardship from slavery to exile, instructed his students that every circumstance is an opportunity to exercise a virtue. Is someone rude to you? That is your chance to practice patience and forgiveness. Are you faced with a daunting task? That is your arena for courage. Amor Fati is the emotional and intellectual shift that allows you to see these opportunities not as threats but as gifts. Let's bring this down to a practical level. Imagine you are working toward a major promotion and you have poured your heart into the application. You have the qualifications, you have the experience, and you feel confident. Then the email arrives, you did not get it. The initial sting is real. The old paradigm, the motivation-based approach, would see this as a devastating failure. Your motivation plummets. You might feel like giving up, convinced that your efforts were wasted. Now apply Amor Fati. You take a deep breath and actively choose to love this outcome. You ask yourself, why might this rejection be exactly what I needed? Perhaps it is saving you from a role that would have burned you out with its demands. Perhaps it is a signal that you need to develop a specific skill further. Perhaps it is simply teaching you the vital lesson of resilience, of how to handle disappointment with grace. By finding the why, you transform the setback from a roadblock into a redirect. The energy you would have spent on bitterness is now channeled into reflection and a new, more informed plan of action. The rejection becomes fuel for a wiser, more determined version of yourself. This is the alchemy of Amor Fati. It takes the leaden weight of misfortune and turns it into the gold of character. A crisis becomes a training ground. A loss becomes a lesson in non-attachment. A betrayal becomes a masterclass in understanding human nature. When you start to view your life through this lens, you stop fighting reality. You stop wasting immense amounts of mental energy wishing things were different. Instead, you engage with reality as it is, with a sense of curiosity and even gratitude. You begin to see your entire life path, with all its bumps and detours, as a perfectly designed curriculum for your personal evolution. There are no longer any irrelevant chapters or meaningless struggles. Every single experience is integral to the story. So here is a question to sit with, one that can fundamentally alter your relationship with your current challenges. Look at a specific difficulty you are facing right now, a project that is not going to plan, a tension in a relationship, a financial pressure. Now ask yourself, how could viewing this specific challenge not as a random piece of bad luck, but as something meant for me, change my approach? If this obstacle was deliberately placed on your path to teach you something essential, what might that lesson be? Is it meant to teach you patience? Humility, assertiveness, resilience. The moment you shift from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to "Why is this happening for me?" you reclaim your power. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a student of life, actively learning from every single moment. This perspective does not make the challenge disappear, but it infuses it with a purpose that makes it bearable, even valuable. It provides a reason to engage fully with the difficulty, to extract every ounce of wisdom from it, and to emerge on the other side not just unscathed, but strengthened and wiser. This is the power of loving your fate. It is the ultimate fuel for a life of unshakable strength and purpose. While the practices of premeditating challenges and loving your fate equip you to engage directly with life's difficulties, there is another profound piece of mental ammunition designed to give you a completely different vantage point, a way to rise above the fray when the noise of daily life becomes overwhelming. This is the Stoic exercise known as the view from above. It is a deliberate mental shift, a kind of psychological zoom out that allows you to see your life, your problems, and your place in the cosmos from a grand and humbling perspective. When you are caught in the thick of a crisis, a minor annoyance can feel like a cataclysm. A critical comment from a coworker can ruin your entire week. A traffic jam can feel like a personal injustice, and a missed deadline can seem like the end of the world. The view from above is the antidote to this myopia. It is the practice of pulling back the camera far beyond the walls of your office or the confines of your daily commute, until you see the entire Earth as a tiny, shimmering blue marble floating in the immense blackness of space. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this practice, and his personal meditations are filled with prompts he used to gain this cosmic perspective. He would remind himself to frequently think of the whole of substance and the whole of time. He would visualize the vastness of the universe and the countless civilizations that have risen and fallen throughout history. In one passage, he instructs himself to look at the courses of the stars as if you were running alongside them, and to constantly consider how the elements of matter transform into one another, for such thoughts cleanse away the grime of earthly life. This was not an escape from his responsibilities as emperor. It was a tool to ensure he executed those responsibilities with wisdom and equanimity, free from the pettiness and panic that so often plague positions of power. By contemplating the sheer scale of existence, he drained his immediate anxieties of their inflated importance. The immediate effect of this practice is a deep and genuine humility. When you contemplate the fact that you are a living organism on a medium-sized planet orbiting an average star, which is one of hundreds of billions in a single galaxy, which is itself one of hundreds of billions in the observable universe, it becomes rather difficult to maintain the belief that your social media post not getting enough likes is a matter of cosmic significance. This is not meant to make you feel insignificant in a negative way, but to contextualize your struggles. That project you are stressed about, that argument you had, that mistake you made, when viewed from this astronomical distance, they are rendered in their true proportion. They are small events in a small life within an impossibly vast and ancient cosmos. This realization is not depressing, it is incredibly liberating. The weight of self-importance lifts from your shoulders, and with it goes the anxiety that attaches itself to minor setbacks. This detachment, however, is not a cold, uncaring indifference. It is a calm and clear-eyed clarity. From the view from above, you are able to distinguish between what truly matters and what is merely a triviality. The health of your loved ones, the integrity of your character, your contribution to the common good, these things retain their value and importance, no matter the perspective. But the thirst for external validation, the resentment over a perceived slight, the obsessive worry about things outside your control, these start to look like what they are: mental dust swirling in a sunbeam, visible only because you are standing too close. This practice provides a serene vantage point from which you can reassess your priorities. It silences the background noise of life's incessant demands and allows you to focus your mental ammunition on the targets that are truly worthy of your energy and virtue. Let's try a practical application of this right now. Bring to mind a current worry, a specific stressor that has been occupying your thoughts. It might be a financial concern, a conflict with a friend, or anxiety about an upcoming presentation. Now close your eyes for just a moment and begin the exercise. First, visualize the room you are in. See it from above as if you are floating near the ceiling. Then pull back further. See your entire home or building from a bird's eye view. Keep going. See your city or town as a map beneath you, with its intricate network of streets and buildings. Then see your country, then the entire continent, shaped like a puzzle piece on the globe. Now watch the Earth itself, a beautiful sphere of blue and white spinning in the silent void. See the moon circling it, and then the sun, a brilliant star in the distance. Contemplate the sheer silence and emptiness of space, and the fact that everything you have ever known, every person you have ever loved, every problem you have ever faced, exists on that one small, fragile world. Now bring your focus back to that original worry. Observe it from this new, expanded viewpoint. How does its size and intensity change? Has its fundamental nature been altered? The problem itself has not vanished, but its power to dominate your emotional landscape has almost certainly diminished. It has been placed within a context so vast that it cannot help but be seen in its proper proportion. This does not mean you ignore it. It means you can now approach it with a calm, rational mind, freed from the suffocating grip of overwhelm. You can apply your Stoic principles, the discipline of assent to see the event clearly, the discipline of desire to focus on your virtuous response, and the discipline of action to do what is right for the common good, without the static of exaggerated anxiety. The view from above is the ultimate tool for decluttering the mind, ensuring that your mental ammunition is reserved for the battles that truly define a life of virtue and purpose. If the view from above gives us a sense of space, then the next piece of mental ammunition gives us a profound sense of time. It is a practice that, at first glance, might seem dark or even macabre, but when understood correctly, becomes an incredible source of light and vitality. This is the Stoic exercise of Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die." Now, before you dismiss this as a morbid fixation, understand that the Stoics saw this not as a cause for despair, but as the ultimate tool for creating urgency, clarity, and a deep appreciation for the life you are living right now. It is the final, most powerful argument against procrastination and the endless waiting for the right moment that motivation demands. The core idea is breathtakingly simple yet transformative. Your time is finite. This is not a pessimistic statement, but a factual one. Every single one of us has a limited number of days, and we never know what that number is. Memento Mori is the practice of holding this truth gently in your awareness, not to frighten you, but to focus you. It is the mental equivalent of a deadline that applies to your entire life. Think about how a project deadline concentrates your mind. Suddenly, trivial distractions lose their power. You know what is essential, and you direct your energy there with laser-like precision. Memento Mori is that same clarifying force applied to your entire existence. It forces you to ask the most important question: if my time is limited, what is truly worthy of it? It makes the search for a fleeting motivational feeling completely irrelevant because the clock is ticking now. Seneca, in his letters to his friend Lucilius, wrote with stunning clarity about this very concept. He said, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." And in another powerful passage, he observed, "We are dying every day, for every day a little of our life is taken away. Even when we are growing, our life is diminishing." This is not a gloomy observation, but a call to awareness. We often live as if we have an unlimited supply of tomorrows, postponing our most important conversations, delaying our cherished goals, and putting off the work of becoming the person we wish to be. We say, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'll do it when I feel more motivated." But Seneca's point is that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Today is the only time you can ever truly possess. Remembering that you will die shatters the illusion of endless time and infuses the present moment with immense meaning and urgency. It shifts the focus from living indefinitely to living intensely and virtuously right now. This practice is the ultimate antidote to procrastination. When you are tempted to scroll mindlessly through social media instead of working on your novel, or to avoid a difficult but necessary conversation, Memento Mori asks you a direct question: is this how you want to spend a portion of your precious, irreplaceable life? Is this activity aligned with your virtues? Is this how you want to be remembered? The pettiness of so many of our daily worries simply evaporates under the clear light of this perspective. The fear of failure, the anxiety about what others think, the hesitation to take a risk, These are luxuries afforded only to those who believe they have forever. When you fully embrace your finitude, these fears lose their grip. You realize that the greatest risk is not failure, but squandering your life on things that do not matter. The energy you once spent on anxiety is freed up for action. You begin to live with a quiet, steady determination, not because you feel a surge of excitement, but because you are acutely aware that each day is a non-renewable resource. This is not about becoming a frantic workaholic, cramming as much productivity as possible into every second. That would be to miss the point entirely. Memento Mori is about prioritization and presence. It is just as much about reminding you to savor the taste of your morning coffee, to truly listen when a loved one is speaking, and to appreciate the simple beauty of a sunset. It sharpens your appreciation for the ordinary moments because you understand they are finite and therefore infinitely precious. It encourages you to mend fractured relationships, to express love and gratitude openly, and to ensure that your actions are in harmony with your deepest values. The focus becomes living a life of virtue now, not at some distant point in the future when conditions are perfect. The goal is to be able to look back at any moment and know that if today were your last, you lived it with intention, integrity, and purpose. So let's bring this profound concept into your immediate experience. I want you to take a moment for a serious but liberating reflection. Ask yourself this question with complete honesty. If I were to truly, deeply internalize the fact that my time is limited, that I will not live forever, what is one thing I would start doing differently starting today? Would you finally have that courageous conversation you have been avoiding? Would you dedicate an hour each day to a creative project that brings you meaning, even if it does not promise fame or fortune? Would you let go of a grudge that has been weighing you down for years? Would you call a family member just to tell them you love them? The answer that comes to you is not a morbid fantasy. It is a compass needle pointing toward what your soul genuinely values. It is a clear signal of where your mental ammunition should be directed. Embracing Memento Mori does not invite despair. It ignites a fierce and loving commitment to making your one precious life a masterpiece of virtue and purpose. It is the final piece of understanding that makes waiting for motivation not just inefficient, but a profound disservice to the incredible gift of your existence. This concept of a mind fortified by principles rather than swayed by circumstances finds its ultimate expression in one of the most powerful metaphors from Stoicism, the inner citadel. This idea, central to the writings of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, imagines your mind as a fortified city, an impregnable fortress deep within you. Think of a massive, ancient castle built on an unshakable foundation of stone, with high, thick walls that have weathered countless storms. This is not a place you visit occasionally. It is your permanent residence, the command center of your entire being. Within these walls lies a sanctuary of pure reason, a quiet hall where your core principles reside, untouched by the chaos raging outside. The inner citadel is the final, complete form of your mental ammunition, a self-contained, self-sufficient source of strength that you carry with you everywhere at all times. The crucial feature of this citadel is that its walls are built from the very disciplines we have been discussing. Every time you practice the discipline of assent, questioning a negative impression before letting it in, you are adding another layer of stone to your defenses. Every time you apply the discipline of desire, aligning your wants with what is truly yours to control, you are reinforcing the gate, and every time you act for the common good, you are ensuring the citadel is well provisioned and connected to the world in a healthy, purposeful way. The practices of premeditating challenges and loving your fate are the strategic maps and training grounds housed within the fortress, preparing you for any siege. The view from above is the highest tower. giving you that essential perspective when the battle below seems overwhelming. And Memento Mori is the inscription over the main gate, reminding you of what truly matters so you do not waste your energy on trivial skirmishes. Now compare this formidable inner structure to the state of a mind that depends entirely on external motivation. That mind has no walls. It is like a tent pitched on an open plain, completely exposed to the elements. When the sun of praise shines and the gentle winds of good fortune blow, it feels wonderful. But the moment a storm of criticism rolls in, or a cold front of failure descends, the tent is ripped from its stakes, and the person inside is left shivering, helpless, and defeated. Their entire emotional state is determined by the weather outside, which they have zero control over. They are perpetually vulnerable, always waiting for conditions to improve before they can feel secure or take action. The Citadel dweller, in stark contrast, observes the same storm from the safety of their walls. They see the wind and rain, but they are not harmed by it. They can continue their work, maintain their peace, and act from a place of principle, completely undisturbed by the external tempest. Their strength comes from within the fortress, not from the hope for fair weather. Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire often on the brink of war and crisis, frequently retreated to this mental fortress. He wrote in his Meditations, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills, but this is altogether unphilosophical, when you can at any moment retreat into yourself. For nowhere can a person find a retreat more full of peace or more free from care than his own soul. This is the ultimate application of the inner citadel. It is a retreat you can access instantly, no matter where you are or what is happening around you. Stuck in a stressful meeting, you can retreat to your citadel for a moment of clarity. Facing a personal conflict, the walls of your principles will protect you from reactive anger. This is not about running away from the world. It is about having an unshakable base of operations from which to engage with the world effectively and virtuously. The beauty of this metaphor is that it makes the abstract concept of mental resilience vividly concrete. You are not just trying to think positive. You are engaged in the active, ongoing construction of a psychological fortress. Every time you choose a reasoned response over an emotional reaction, you are a mason laying another brick. Every time you study Stoic wisdom, you are an architect refining the blueprints. This citadel is not built in a day, but through daily, consistent practice. And once its foundations are set and its walls begin to rise, you start to experience a profound and lasting sense of security. You realize that no external event, no job loss, no criticism, no failure can ever truly breach your inner defenses unless you willingly open the gates. Your happiness, your worth, and your purpose become located firmly within the little territory of your own mind, a territory that you, and you alone, are responsible for fortifying and governing. This is the culmination of Stoic practice, not a life free from difficulty, but a life where difficulty cannot reach the core of who you are. Now that we have explored the formidable architecture of the inner citadel, the natural question is, how do we actually build it? How do we move from understanding these powerful Stoic concepts to making them a living, breathing part of our daily existence? The answer lies not in grand, occasional gestures, but in the quiet, consistent ritual of how we begin each day. This is where we shift from theory to the most practical application of all, designing a morning routine that actively loads your mental ammunition, so you step into the world not hoping for a good day, but prepared for any day. Think of your mind first thing in the morning. It is often at its most vulnerable, a blank slate slowly being written upon by the events and emotions of the coming hours. To leave this process to chance is to cede control right from the start. It is like a soldier heading into the field without checking their gear. A Stoic morning ritual is the deliberate, purposeful process of inspecting your mental arsenal, cleaning your weapons, and loading them with the right principles for the engagements ahead. This is not about finding motivation. It is about building the discipline that makes motivation irrelevant. It is the daily training, the ascesis, that fortifies your inner citadel brick by brick. One of the most powerful components of this ritual is a brief session of Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of challenges we discussed earlier. Instead of starting your day by checking your phone and being immediately bombarded by the world's demands, you take just 5 minutes of quiet. You close your eyes and you calmly, rationally envision the potential obstacles the day might hold. You are not doing this to create anxiety, but to disarm it. Imagine the specific challenges you might face: a difficult conversation with a colleague, a tedious task you have been procrastinating on, the possibility of a project setback. But crucially, you do not stop at the problem. You immediately rehearse your Stoic response. You see yourself applying the discipline of Assent, recognizing that the event itself is neutral. You apply Amor Fati, accepting the challenge as an opportunity to practice patience or courage. You decide in advance how you will act with virtue. By doing this, you are conducting your fire drill before the alarm even sounds. When a challenge actually arises, it feels familiar, and your composed response is already half-formulated. You have loaded that specific round of ammunition into your chamber. Another essential element is immersing yourself, even if only for a few moments, in the wisdom of Stoic texts. This is not about academic study, it is about philosophical nourishment. Keep a book of meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or a letter from Seneca, or a teaching from Epictetus on your bedside table. Read just a single passage. Let the words sink in. The goal is to reconnect with the Stoic perspective before the concerns of the day narrow your focus. Reading Marcus Aurelius reminding himself to greet the day with kindness towards troublesome people sets a tone of compassion. Reading Epictetus discussing the dichotomy of control re-centers your mind on what is truly yours to command. This practice is like consulting the map of your inner citadel each morning, reminding you of the layout of your defenses and the principles that govern your realm. It aligns your thinking with 2,000 years of proven wisdom, ensuring you start the day from a place of strength and clarity, not reactivity. Finally, this morning ritual should culminate in setting a simple, virtue-based intention for the day. This is fundamentally different from a to-do list focused on outcomes. A to-do list says, I intend to finish the quarterly report and get approval from my manager. This is an outcome-based goal, a target that is subject to the wind. A virtue-based intention, however, says, today, I will focus on acting with diligence and integrity in my work, and I will respond to feedback with wisdom and grace. Do you see the difference? The first intention ties your success to an external result you cannot fully control. The second intention ties your success to your own character, which is always within your power. No matter what happens with the report or the manager's reaction, you can fulfill your intention completely. You can end the day having succeeded in your own terms because you aimed well. This shifts your entire focus from what you need to get from the world to what you can bring to it. It turns your day into a continuous opportunity to exercise your virtues, making every moment meaningful. The beauty of this routine is its flexibility. It does not require an hour of meditation or complex rituals. It can be accomplished in 10 to 15 minutes. The key is consistency. It is the daily repetition that forges the neural pathways of Stoic response. It is the gentle, persistent reminder each morning that your strength does not come from external conditions, but from the principles you choose to uphold. This practice builds a rhythm of self-mastery that, over time, becomes second nature. You are no longer trying to remember Stoicism in the heat of the moment. You have lived it already in the quiet of the morning, and your mind is primed to act accordingly. So, as we wrap up this practical segment, here is a simple, actionable question to carry with you. What is one single Stoic practice from this morning ritual that you can incorporate into your life tomorrow? It does not have to be the whole routine. Perhaps it is just the 2 minutes of Premeditatio Malorum, visualizing one potential challenge and your virtuous response. Perhaps it is reading one paragraph from a Stoic philosopher with your morning coffee. Or perhaps it is simply writing down one virtue-based intention on a note card before you start your work. Choose one, make it small, make it manageable, but make it consistent. This is how you begin the quiet, steady work of building your arsenal, ensuring that you face the day not as a victim of circumstance, but as the fortified commander of your own mind, fully loaded with the mental ammunition to navigate whatever comes your way. Of course, all of this preparation leads to the true test, the moment a setback actually strikes. It is one thing to contemplate challenges in the quiet of the morning. It is another entirely to face them when your heart is pounding and your plans are unraveling in real time. This is where your mental ammunition must move from the arsenal into your hands, ready to be fired. The key is to have a simple, repeatable process, a mental checklist you can run through when the pressure is on. Think of it as an emergency protocol for your mind, one that transforms a potential crisis into a deliberate training ground for your character. The very first and most critical step, the moment you feel that initial jolt of disappointment or frustration, is to simply pause. Do not react, do not fire off that angry email, do not spiral into a story of catastrophe. Just stop, create a sliver of space between the event and your response. This pause is the activation of the discipline of assent. It is in this breath of silence that you can pose the foundational question: is this event, in and of itself, truly bad? Or is it my initial, automatic judgment that is labeling it as such? Separate the raw fact from the story you are already starting to tell. The project failed. That is the neutral fact. The story might be, I am a failure, my career is over, everyone will think less of me. The discipline of assent allows you to catch that story before it hijacks your nervous system. You acknowledge the fact the project failed, but you withhold your agreement from the catastrophic interpretation. You remember that the event itself is indifferent. It is your judgment that gives it power. This momentary pause is the difference between a reasoned response and a reactive explosion. Once you have created that space and challenged the initial judgment, you immediately load the next, more powerful round, Amor Fati. This is where you shift from defense to a proactive embrace. You look directly at the setback and ask not, why is this happening to me, but how can this serve me? How can I love this fate? This is not about pretending to be happy about a failure. It is about adopting the mindset of a scientist who has just discovered an unexpected result. The experiment did not fail, it yielded data. Your project failure is data. What can it teach you? Perhaps it reveals a flaw in your planning process that, if corrected, will prevent a much larger failure in the future. Perhaps it is redirecting you toward a path that is more aligned with your true skills and values. Amor Fati forces you to look for the opportunity embedded within the obstacle. It transforms the setback from a stop sign into a detour sign, pointing you toward a route you might never have considered otherwise. This reframing drains the situation of its emotional toxicity and fills it with a sense of purpose and curiosity. With a clearer mind from the discipline of assent and a purposeful attitude from Amor Fati, you are now ready for the final, decisive step, focusing on virtuous action within the new circumstance. The situation has changed, the old plan is gone, so what is the right thing to do now? This is the discipline of action in its purest form. Your virtue is not dependent on everything going according to plan. It is expressed precisely when things go wrong. Your action is no longer about achieving the original goal, but about acting with integrity and wisdom in the landscape that currently exists. This means asking, what does courage look like in this moment? Perhaps it is having the humility to admit the mistake to your team or your client. What does justice require? Maybe it is ensuring that any fallout from the failure is handled fairly without blaming others. What does wisdom dictate? It could be taking clear-headed stock of the resources you have left and deciding on the most prudent next step. Your goal shifts from salvaging the past to building the future with virtue. Let's make this process vividly clear with a specific example. Imagine you have spent months developing a new software feature for your company, and the day it launches, a major bug is discovered that forces you to take the entire system offline. The initial panic is real. Your pause, the discipline of Assent, allows you to separate the fact, a bug exists, from the story. I have ruined the company's reputation and will surely be fired. You acknowledge the serious problem without assenting to the career-ending narrative. Then you apply Amor Fati. You ask, how can I love this? Perhaps this very public failure is a brutal but necessary lesson that forces the entire company to improve its quality assurance processes, ultimately making your product stronger and more reliable for years to come. It is a chance to demonstrate leadership under pressure. Finally, you focus on virtuous action. Courage means immediately and transparently communicating the issue to your customers. Justice means working tirelessly with your team to fix the problem, supporting them rather than blaming them. Wisdom means carefully planning the relaunch to ensure it is flawless. The crisis becomes a training ground where your character is forged in fire. This entire approach is perfectly captured by the words of Epictetus, who knew a thing or two about hardship. He said, "Difficulty shows what men are. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and a life without setbacks never reveals the depth of a person's character." When everything is easy, we can all appear virtuous, but it is in the moment of difficulty that our true mettle is tested and displayed. The setback is not an interruption of your path, it is an essential part of it. It is the universe presenting you with a pop quiz on everything you have been learning. By applying this simple three-step process, pause with the discipline of Assent, reframe with Amor Fati, and act with virtue, you ensure that you pass the test. You demonstrate not just what you know, but who you are. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become the active author of your response, writing a story of resilience that is far more impressive than any story of unbroken success could ever be. Now, let's consider one of the most common and draining tests of our mental ammunition, dealing with difficult people. Whether it is a chronically negative coworker, a demanding family member, or a stranger who seems intent on provoking you, these interactions can feel like a direct assault on your peace of mind. It is incredibly easy to get sucked into the drama, to react with matching sharpness, or to spend hours afterward fuming over the encounter. But from a Stoic perspective, these challenging individuals are not interruptions to your tranquility. They are essential sparring partners sent to train it. They provide the perfect, real-world arena to deploy the very principles we have been building. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, you can learn to see them as the reason you built your arsenal in the first place. The first and most powerful piece of ammunition to reach for in these moments is the view from above. When someone is rude, insulting, or simply grating on your nerves, your initial impression is often a personal one. They are doing this to me. This interpretation immediately puts you on the defensive and triggers a flood of emotional reactivity. The view from above asks you to zoom out from that personal narrative and see the bigger picture. That difficult person is not a villain in a story centered on you. They are a human being acting out of their own inner world, a world filled with their own insecurities, their own past hurts, their own ignorance, and their own struggles. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this. He would write notes to himself about people who annoyed him, saying things like, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. This is not an excuse for their behavior, but an explanation. It is a recognition that their actions are a reflection of their own flawed character and their own internal battles, not a valid judgment on your worth." This shift in perspective is profoundly liberating. It allows you to stop taking their behavior personally. When you understand that a person's negativity is a symptom of their own pain or confusion, it becomes easier to observe it with a degree of detachment, even pity, rather than feeling attacked. Imagine a dog barking ferociously from behind a fence. The barking is loud and unpleasant, but you understand it is not about you. The dog is acting out of fear or a territorial instinct. You do not get into a shouting match with the dog. You might feel a bit of compassion for its agitated state, and you simply continue on your way. Applying the view from above to a difficult person works in a similar way. It allows you to hear the barking without feeling the need to bark back. You see their behavior as a fact of their current condition, which is outside your control, and you conserve your energy for what is within your control, your own response. This is where the discipline of action becomes your guide. Once you have used the view from above to depersonalize the encounter and regain your composure, you must decide how to act. The Stoic imperative is to act with justice and kindness. Justice in this context means giving the person what they are owed as a fellow human being, which is basic respect and fairness, not what their behavior might seem to deserve. Kindness is the strength to respond with humanity, even when it is not reciprocated. This does not mean being a doormat or agreeing with unreasonable demands. It might mean calmly setting a firm boundary. It might mean simply refusing to engage in a pointless argument. The virtuous action is the one that aligns with your character, not the one that mirrors theirs. Your goal is not to win the confrontation or to change them. Your goal is to remain true to your own principles. By choosing a response grounded in justice and kindness, you protect your own integrity and often de-escalate the situation entirely. You become a calm center in their emotional storm. Finally, and most importantly, you must firmly grasp the dichotomy of control. In any interaction, you have zero control over the other person's thoughts, words, or actions. You cannot make them be reasonable, polite, or fair. The only thing you have 100% command over is your own response, your judgment of the event, your internal attitude, and your subsequent actions. Trying to control the uncontrollable is the source of immense frustration. When you stop trying to manage the other person's behavior and focus exclusively on managing your own, you reclaim all your power. The interaction is no longer about them. It is about you and your commitment to virtue. Did you act with patience? Did you respond with integrity? Did you maintain your inner peace? If you can answer yes to these questions, then you have succeeded, regardless of how the other person behaved. They may walk away still angry or difficult, but you walk away with your character intact and your inner citadel unbreached. You have used the encounter not as a source of misery, but as a successful field test of your mental ammunition, proving to yourself that your peace is truly yours to keep. This distinction between a resilient, fortified mind and one that is reactive and vulnerable leads us directly to a critical comparison, one that gets to the very heart of our topic, the fundamental difference between Stoic courage and the modern concept of a motivational pep talk. On the surface, they might seem to aim for the same goal, to help you overcome a challenge, but in their source, their substance, and their staying power, they could not be more different. Understanding this difference is like knowing the contrast between building a sturdy, self-sufficient home and relying on the occasional burst of sunshine to keep you warm. Stoic courage, known to the Greeks as Andrea, is not a feeling you stumble upon or a sudden burst of bravery. It is a virtue, which means it is a character trait that is consciously cultivated and strengthened through consistent practice and the application of reason. It is a deep-seated, steady commitment to doing what is right and necessary, even when, and especially when, you feel fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the judgment that something else is more important than the fear. It is the decision to act from principle, not from emotion. This kind of courage is built incrementally like a muscle. It is developed in the small, everyday moments, choosing to speak up in a meeting when you are nervous, tackling a difficult task first thing in the morning, or having an honest conversation you have been avoiding. Each time you act with virtue in the face of discomfort, you are not just performing a single brave act, you are strengthening the very faculty of courage within you. It becomes a permanent part of your arsenal, a piece of your mental ammunition that is always loaded and ready. A motivational pep talk, on the other hand, operates on a completely different mechanism. It is primarily an external stimulus designed to provoke an emotional spike. Think of a rousing speech, an intense workout playlist, or a video clip of someone achieving an incredible feat. These things can be incredibly effective at generating a surge of adrenaline and excitement. For a short time, you feel invincible. The problem is that feeling is a chemical reaction in your body, and like any spike, it must eventually subside. It is dependent on the external source, the speaker, the music, the video. Once the stimulus is gone, the emotional high fades, and you are left with the same underlying challenge, often feeling even more drained than before because you have expended that burst of energy. A pep talk is like sugar. It gives you a quick hit, but it does not provide lasting nourishment. It does not build any internal capacity. It merely borrows energy from your future self, leaving you in need of another pep talk the next time a difficulty arises. You become dependent on an external source for your drive, which is the exact opposite of the self-sufficiency that Stoicism aims to create. This is why courage is part of your ammunition, while a pep talk is merely a temporary stimulus. Your ammunition is something you carry with you. It is internal and integrated into your character. A stimulus is something that happens to you. It is external and separate from you. The Stoics understood that true courage is actually a form of knowledge. It is the knowledge of what is truly good and evil, that the only real evil is vice like cowardice or injustice, and the only real good is virtue. It is the knowledge of what is within your control and what is not. When you possess this knowledge, fear of external outcomes, failure, embarrassment, loss loses its power over you. You understand that these things cannot harm your core self, your character. The Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher Seneca articulated this beautifully when he wrote, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something else is more important than fear." This judgment is an act of reason, a piece of knowledge. It is a conclusion you reach, not a feeling you wait for. Consider a soldier heading into battle. A motivational pep talk from their commander might stir their emotions, pump them up, and help bond the unit. This has its place, but when the battle begins and the chaos erupts, the noise of the speech will be drowned out by the sounds of conflict. In that moment, what will guide the soldier's actions? It will not be the fading echo of a speech. It will be their training, their discipline, their commitment to their comrades, and their understanding of their duty. In other words, their courage. That courage was built through countless hours of difficult practice, through mastering their skills, and through internalizing a code of conduct. The pep talk was the match that lit the fuse, but the courage is the gunpowder in the bullet itself. One is fleeting, the other is the substance that does the work. This distinction is vital for our own lives. When you face a daunting challenge, perhaps starting a new business, leaving a toxic relationship, or defending an unpopular but right opinion, you have a choice. You can seek out a motivational boost, looking for something outside yourself to make you feel ready, or you can tap into your stoic courage. You can pause and apply your knowledge. You can remember that the fear you feel is natural, but it is not a command to retreat. You can recall that your worth is not on the line, only your virtuous action is. You can focus on what is within your control, your effort, your integrity, your willingness to try. This approach may not come with the same emotional fireworks as a pep talk. It is quieter, steadier, and more deliberate, but it is also infinitely more reliable. It does not burn out. It is the calm, determined energy that carries you through the long, difficult middle of a project when the initial excitement has vanished, and through the inevitable setbacks that would shatter a motivation-dependent spirit. Stoic courage is the deep, slow-burning fuel for the marathon of a virtuous life, while the pep talk is merely a flash in the pan. This idea of courage as a cultivated strength leads us directly to a related but profoundly different concept: resilience. In our everyday language, we often talk about the goal being to bounce back after a setback. We imagine a spring or a rubber ball, something that gets compressed by a force and then returns to its exact original shape. This sounds positive, and in many contexts it is. But from a Stoic perspective, this notion of bouncing back is incomplete, even inadequate. It suggests that the ideal outcome is a simple return to the status quo, as if the adversity never happened. Stoic resilience, however, is something far more transformative. It is not about returning to who you were, but about becoming someone new, someone wiser and more robust because of the experience. It is the difference between a rebound and a reinvention. The modern thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb coined a perfect term for this Stoic quality: antifragile. Where something fragile breaks under stress like a wine glass, and something resilient merely withstands it, like a sturdy rock, something that is antifragile actually gets better, stronger, and improves when exposed to volatility, shocks, and disorder. Your immune system is antifragile. It requires exposure to germs to develop its defenses. A muscle is antifragile. It must be torn down through exercise to rebuild itself more powerfully. Stoic resilience is the psychological and ethical equivalent of this principle. It is not about building a wall around yourself so thick that nothing can hurt you. That is just being robust. It is about developing a system, a character, that actively uses the shocks and challenges of life as the very fuel for its own growth and improvement. The adversity is not an enemy to be survived. It is the necessary training partner for your evolution. A powerful analogy to illustrate this is the process of a bone healing after a break. Imagine you fall and fracture your arm. The immediate goal of medical treatment is to set the bone correctly so it can heal. But here is the remarkable part: the body does not simply glue the broken pieces back together. In the area of the fracture, it creates a callus, a thick, hardened mass of bone tissue that is actually stronger and denser than the surrounding bone. The healed section of the bone is, in a very real sense, more resilient to future impacts than it was before the break. The break itself was the catalyst for creating a superior structure. This is the perfect image of Stoic resilience. The setback, the fracture in your plans, your pride, or your comfort, is painful. But if you have the right mental ammunition, the principles to set the brake correctly through the disciplines of assent, desire, and action. The healing process does not just restore you. It forges a callus of wisdom, a thickened layer of character that is more capable of handling future stress. You do not bounce back to the person you were. You grow forward into a person who is stronger at the broken places. This is why the mental ammunition we have been discussing is so crucial. Without it, a major life blow can leave you permanently damaged, like a bone that was never set and heals crookedly, causing a lifelong limp. You might bounce back in the sense that you continue to function, but you carry the injury with you and it weakens your entire structure. But with a Stoic framework, you have the tools to set the brake. You use the discipline of assent to see the event clearly without the distortion of catastrophic thinking. You apply Amor Fati to accept the fracture as part of your path. You focus on virtuous action to do the necessary work of healing. The result is not a simple return to normalcy. The result is that you emerge with a deeper understanding of your own capacity, a more profound trust in your principles, and a quiet confidence that you can navigate future difficulties because you have evidence of your own ability to not just survive, but to improve under pressure. This transformative process is what separates a Stoic from someone who is merely tough. Toughness is about gritting your teeth and enduring. Stoic resilience is about learning, adapting, and integrating the lesson into the very fabric of your being. A tough person might get through a bankruptcy by sheer willpower, but they may carry a deep-seated fear of financial risk forever. A Stoic facing the same bankruptcy would certainly feel the sting, but they would use it as a masterclass in the dichotomy of control. They would learn about prudent management, about what is truly essential for a good life, and about the impermanence of external wealth. They would not just recover their finances, they would recover with a renewed and unshakable understanding that their worth is in their character, not their bank account. The bankruptcy becomes a watershed moment that clarifies their values for the rest of their life. They are not the same person they were before. They are wiser, more grounded, and less attached to the indifferent things of the world. This is antifragility in action. The hardship did not just fail to break them, it actively built them into a more complete human being. All of these powerful concepts, the disciplines, the mental exercises, the fortified inner citadel, they are not meant to remain as abstract ideas you simply agree with. Their true power is only unlocked when they are actively integrated into the fabric of your daily life. And there is one practice above all others that serves as the essential workshop for this integration: the ancient art of Stoic journaling. Think of your journal not as a diary of events, but as your personal ammunition log. It is the dedicated space where you inspect your weapons, clean your tools, and take stock of your supplies after a day on the field of life. Marcus Aurelius himself, the most powerful man in the world, did not write his meditations for publication. He wrote them as a private journal, a series of notes and reminders to himself to reinforce his Stoic principles. His private writings became one of the most enduring guides to resilience ever penned, precisely because they were not theoretical, but practical, raw, and personal. This is the transformative potential of the practice. It turns fleeting experience into enduring wisdom. The most effective time for this practice is often in the evening, as a form of nightly review. This is not about dwelling on the day's events with regret or self-congratulation, but about conducting a calm, objective after-action report. The Stoics called this practice melite, or meditation, a deliberate turning inward to examine the day's actions. You can structure this review around 3 simple but profound questions. First, ask yourself, what did I do well today in accordance with my principles? Where did I manage to apply the discipline of assent, pausing before reacting to a provocation? When did I align my desires with what was within my control? This is not about ego. It is about recognizing and reinforcing successful applications of your mental ammunition. Acknowledging these small victories builds confidence and solidifies the neural pathways that lead to virtuous action, making it more likely you will choose that path again tomorrow. The second, and perhaps more crucial, question is, where did I fail to live up to my ideals? Where did I fall short? The key here is to approach this without self-flagellation or judgment. Adopt the attitude of a coach reviewing game footage. You are not blaming the player, you are analyzing the play to identify the error and correct it for next time. Perhaps you lost your temper in a meeting, or you procrastinated on an important task, or you acted out of a desire for external validation rather than internal virtue. The journal is the safe space to confess these shortcomings honestly. By writing them down, you externalize the failure. You bring it out of the shadowy realm of guilt and into the clear light of reason where it can be examined and learned from. This process of honest self-assessment is how you identify the specific weak spots in your inner citadel that need reinforcement. This leads directly to the third question: what can I learn from this, and how will I do better tomorrow? This is where the journal transforms from a simple log into an active training manual. Based on your analysis, you formulate a specific, actionable plan. If you failed by reacting angrily to criticism, your plan for tomorrow might be, when I receive feedback, I will pause for 3 full breaths before responding. I will apply the discipline of assent to question my initial impression. I will remember that the criticism is about my work, not my character. This turns a past failure into a future strategy. You are not just noting a mistake, you are loading a new, more effective round of ammunition into your belt, tailored specifically to a challenge you know you will face again. This proactive planning bridges the gap between reflection and preparation, ensuring that your nightly review directly fuels your morning ritual. Beyond this nightly review, the journal is also the perfect tool for internalizing Stoic teachings. It is one thing to read a powerful quote from Seneca or Epictetus. It is another entirely to write it down in your own hand and then spend a few moments reflecting on what it means for your life. Try copying a single passage that resonates with you. Then, write a few sentences about how you can apply its wisdom to a current challenge. This act of writing engages the mind on a deeper level than passive reading, weaving the philosophical principle directly into your own thought patterns. Seneca, a prolific letter writer who understood the power of the written word for self-development, emphasized this need for daily introspection. He advised, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This nightly audit, he believed, was the key to a peaceful mind because it allows you to reconcile with yourself and sleep with a clear conscience. To make this practice immediately accessible, here are a few simple prompts you can use to get started tonight. You do not need to write pages. Even a few sentences for each can be profoundly effective. First, what is one thing that triggered me today, and how could I have viewed it through the lens of the dichotomy of control? Second, when did I act for the common good today, and how did it feel different from acting purely for myself? Third, what is one small victory I had over a negative impulse? And finally, based on today's events, what is one intention I can set for tomorrow that is focused on virtue rather than outcome? The consistent use of these prompts creates a feedback loop of self-awareness and incremental improvement. Over time, your journal becomes a tangible record of your growth, a map of your journey from being buffeted by external events to becoming the steady captain of your own soul. It is in these quiet, honest pages that you truly forge your mental ammunition, round by round, night by night. All of this journaling and self-reflection leads us to a profound realization, one that acts as a master key, unlocking the full potential of every other piece of mental ammunition we possess. It is the ultimate clarification, a principle so foundational that the Stoic teacher Epictetus placed it right at the very beginning of his handbook, the Enchiridion. He starts with a simple, stark declaration that has echoed through the centuries. Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. This is the dichotomy of control, and while we have touched on it, its true power is not in its simplicity, but in its liberating effect. Understanding this distinction is not just a philosophical idea. It is the act of freeing your ammunition from the shackles of wasted effort, allowing you to focus all your energy where it can actually make a difference. The illusion that so many of us live under is the belief that we can and should control a vast swath of the world around us. We desperately try to manage our reputation, obsess over the outcome of a job interview, fret about what others think of us, and become enraged when other people do not behave as we wish they would. We pour immense amounts of our precious mental and emotional energy into trying to command these external forces, like a sailor trying to command the wind and the waves. The result, as Epictetus would quickly point out, is a life of frustration, anxiety, and disappointment. You will inevitably fail because you are fighting a battle you were never equipped to win. You are trying to control the uncontrollable, and in the process, you are exhausting the very resources you need to fight the battles you can actually win. This futile struggle is what drains your energy and leaves you feeling powerless. But when you truly internalize the dichotomy of control, a miraculous shift occurs. That exhausting struggle simply stops. You lay down the burden of trying to manage the unmanageable. You look at the world and you see it with new clarity. You realize that your sphere of control is actually quite small, but it is incredibly powerful. It contains your opinions, your impulses, your desires, your aversions, in short, your judgments and your chosen actions. Everything else, your body, your property, your reputation, the past, the future, and the actions of every other person on the planet resides firmly outside that sphere. This is not a pessimistic narrowing of your influence. It is a realistic and incredibly freeing focusing of your power. It is the difference between trying to heat your entire neighborhood with a single candle and using that same candle to brilliantly light the one room you are actually in. You stop scattering your energy to the winds and you start concentrating it like a laser beam on the only thing that has ever been yours to command, your own mind and your own will. This clarity is in itself a potent form of mental ammunition. It is the ammunition of focus. Imagine you are stuck in a terrible traffic jam. You are going to be late for an important meeting. The old paradigm, the one trapped in the illusion of control, would have you fuming. You would grip the steering wheel, curse the other drivers, honk your horn pointlessly, and feel your blood pressure rise. You are trying to control the traffic, a situation that is completely outside your power. You are wasting your ammunition, your calm, your reason, your peace of mind, on a target you cannot hit. Now apply the dichotomy of control. What is within your control in this moment? You cannot control the traffic. You cannot control the fact that you will be late. But you can control your judgment about this event. You can decide that this delay is not a catastrophe. You can control your actions. You can use the time to listen to an audiobook, to make a phone call you have been putting off, or simply to practice being patient. You can control your desire, shifting it from, "I must be on time," to, "I will handle this delay with grace and use this time productively." By focusing your effort exclusively within your circle, you transform a stressful ordeal into a neutral, even useful interval of time. The traffic jam has not changed, but your experience of it has been completely revolutionized because you stopped firing your ammunition at an impenetrable wall and instead used it to fortify your own position. This is the ultimate freedom that Stoicism offers. It is the freedom that comes from knowing exactly where your responsibility begins and ends. You are responsible for your effort, but not for the outcome. You are responsible for acting with kindness, but not for how that kindness is received. You are responsible for your integrity, but not for your reputation. When you finally grasp this, a weight lifts. The anxiety that comes from needing a specific result evaporates because your success is no longer tied to that result. Your success is tied to your virtuous effort. This liberates you to act with greater boldness and creativity because the fear of failure loses its sting. Failure, after all, is an outcome, and outcomes are not yours to control. What is yours to control is how you respond to that failure, what you learn from it, and how you choose to proceed. This focused, liberated energy is what allows for truly consistent and purposeful action. It is the difference between a gardener who worries daily about the weather, the soil pH, and the pests, and one who focuses solely on preparing the soil, planting good seeds, and watering consistently. The second gardener may not control the harvest, but they will always have a better chance of a good one, and they will enjoy the process infinitely more because their peace is found in the work itself, not in the unpredictable yield. This is the quiet confidence that comes from a mind that knows its own domain and tends to it with unwavering focus. This idea that your virtuous effort is its own reward leads us directly to the very engine of the entire Stoic system, the core driver that renders the need for motivation completely obsolete. This is the profound principle that virtue is its own reward. It sounds simple, almost like a moral platitude, but for the Stoics, this was not a nice sentiment. It was a radical, life-altering fact. It is the ultimate piece of mental ammunition because it makes you entirely self-sufficient. Your reason for action, your source of fulfillment, becomes entirely internal, independent of any external validation or outcome. The goal of life, according to Stoicism, is to live in accordance with virtue, to act with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. The remarkable twist is that the act of living virtuously is not just the path to the goal, it is the goal itself. The flourishing life, Eudaimonia, is a life of virtue. Therefore, every single time you choose a courageous act, a just decision, a wise response, or a temperate restraint, you are not just taking a step toward a good life, you are instantaneously living a good life in that very moment. This stands in stark contrast to how we are typically conditioned to operate. We are taught to act for external rewards. We study hard for the good grade. We work diligently for the promotion and the bonus. We behave kindly in the hope of receiving kindness in return. There is nothing inherently wrong with these outcomes. The Stoics would call them preferred indifference, things it is perfectly rational to prefer, but the critical shift happens when you make them the source of your satisfaction. When the promotion is your reason for working hard, your sense of worth becomes tied to a decision made by someone else in a boardroom. If it comes, you feel validated. If it does not, you feel cheated and your effort feels wasted. You are on an emotional roller coaster, your peace of mind held hostage by events outside your control. Your ammunition is aimed at a target you cannot guarantee, but when you internalize the idea that virtue is its own reward, the entire dynamic flips. You no longer work hard for the promotion. You work hard because diligence is a form of the virtue of justice. It is giving your best to your work and your colleagues, which is the right thing to do. The promotion becomes a preferred indifferent. If it comes, you can welcome it gracefully, but if it does not, you have still achieved your true aim. You have acted with justice. Your satisfaction is already complete because it was found in the action itself, not in its consequence. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius captured this with beautiful clarity when he wrote in his private meditations, "The reward for a good deed is to have done it." Let that sink in for a moment. The reward is not the praise you receive, the bonus you might get, or the social status it confers. The reward is the internal knowledge that you acted in alignment with your highest principles. That knowledge is a possession that can never be taken from you. It is a quiet, permanent satisfaction that no external failure can ever erase. This is the pinnacle of mental ammunition because it makes you truly invulnerable to the whims of fortune. Think of two artists. The first artist creates a painting with the sole aim of selling it for a high price at a gallery. Their entire emotional state is tied to the market's reception. If the painting sells, they are elated. If it does not, they are crushed, and their desire to paint may wither. The second artist, however, paints for the love of the craft itself. Their reward is in the act of creation, in the challenge of mixing colors, in the flow state of bringing an idea to life. A sale is a nice bonus, but it is not the source of their joy. Their joy is found in the virtuous act of creating excellently. Which artist is more resilient? Which one possesses a deeper, more enduring wellspring of motivation? The answer is clear. The second artist is powered by an internal engine. They are like a well that draws from its own aquifer, while the first artist is like a bucket waiting to be filled by an external rain that may or may not come. This internalization of purpose transforms every task, no matter how small or mundane, into an opportunity for meaningful action. Washing the dishes is no longer a chore to be rushed through. It becomes a practice in mindfulness and temperance, an exercise in completing a task with care and attention. Listening patiently to a friend's troubles is not just a social obligation. It is an act of compassion and justice, honoring your shared humanity. There are no longer any insignificant moments. Every action becomes a chance to express your character, to build your inner citadel, and to experience the immediate reward of virtuous living. This is why motivation becomes irrelevant. You are not waiting for a feeling to strike before you act excellently. You are acting excellently because that is what a rational, virtuous human being does, and the very act of doing so is its own fulfillment. This self-contained system of value is the most powerful and liberating piece of mental ammunition you can ever possess, turning your entire life into a continuous, self-rewarding practice of strength and integrity. Understanding these principles on an intellectual level is a vital first step, but it is only the first step. Knowing that you should pause before assenting to an impression is not the same as actually pausing when your boss sends a frustrating email. Understanding the dichotomy of control is a world away from feeling a genuine sense of calm when you are stuck in traffic. The crucial bridge between theory and lived experience, between knowing the path and walking the path, is the process of turning philosophy into habit. The ancient Greeks had a word for this, hexis, a term that describes a stable, dispositional state, a quality that has become so ingrained in your character that it is second nature. This is the ultimate goal, not to have to think about being courageous, but to find that courage is simply your default response when faced with fear. This transformation does not happen through insight alone. It happens through the relentless, consistent, and often unglamorous work of deliberate practice in the countless small moments of your daily life. Think of building your mental ammunition exactly as you would build physical muscle. You cannot get stronger by merely reading a book about weightlifting. You can understand the mechanics of a bicep curl, the importance of protein, and the theory of progressive overload, but none of that knowledge will change the appearance of your arm. The transformation occurs only when you consistently show up at the gym, pick up the weight, and perform the exercise day after day, even on the days you feel tired or unmotivated. Each rep is a small, seemingly insignificant action, but over weeks and months, those repetitions forge new strength. The muscle fibers tear and repair themselves, becoming thicker and more resilient. What was once difficult and required immense conscious effort eventually becomes easy, almost automatic. Your capacity expands not through a single heroic effort, but through the accumulation of countless minor ones. The exact same principle applies to forging your Stoic resilience. Reading Marcus Aurelius is like reading the workout plan. It is essential, but it is not the workout itself. The real training happens in the gym of your daily life. It is the conscious effort to apply the discipline of assent when your partner says something that irritates you, choosing to question your initial anger instead of lashing out. It is the repetition of the discipline of desire when you feel envy for a colleague's success, consciously redirecting your focus to the integrity of your own efforts. It is the practice of the discipline of action when you are tempted to cut a corner on a project, but you choose to do the right thing for the common good instead. Each of these choices, no matter how small, is like a single rep for your character. It is a repetition of virtue that, over time, strengthens the neural pathways associated with rational, principled action. The habit, the hexis, is the psychological muscle you are building. This is why the scale of the action is almost irrelevant. It is the consistency and the intention behind it that matters most. You do not need to start by facing down a major life crisis with perfect Stoic composure. In fact, that is a recipe for failure. Instead, you begin with the minor irritations, the daily frustrations that normally trigger an automatic negative response. The goal is to achieve what the Stoics called proherses, a trained moral character that chooses virtuously as a matter of course. This is how virtue becomes second nature. It starts with making your bed in the morning as an exercise in discipline and order. It continues by choosing to listen fully to someone without interrupting them, practicing the virtue of justice and respect. It is found in opting for a healthy meal when you are tempted by junk food, an act of temperance. Every one of these small, seemingly insignificant actions is an opportunity to reaffirm your commitment to your principles. They are the repetitions that build the muscle memory of your soul, so that when a truly significant challenge arises, your trained character knows how to respond without you having to consciously recall a quote from a book. Your inner citadel responds automatically because you have spent months, years, building its walls one virtuous brick at a time. The beauty of this approach is that it makes the entire journey manageable and accessible right now, in this very moment. You do not need to wait for a grand opportunity to prove your Stoic mettle. The opportunity is presenting itself to you constantly. The question is not whether you will be perfect, but whether you will choose to practice. With this in mind, consider a simple but powerful way to begin. Ask yourself this: what is one small, virtuous action you can commit to practicing consistently this week? It must be specific, achievable, and tied directly to a Stoic principle. Perhaps it is this: for 1 week, I will practice the discipline of assent by taking 3 deep breaths before responding to any critical feedback. Or, my practice will be to find one small thing to appreciate in a difficult situation each day, applying Amor Fati. It could even be as simple as, I will complete the most tedious task of my day first without complaint, as an exercise in discipline and focus. The specific action matters less than the commitment to the repetition itself. This focused, consistent practice is the alchemy that turns the lead of theoretical knowledge into the gold of unshakable strength. It is the quiet, determined path from understanding what is right to becoming someone who does what is right, naturally and effortlessly. Of course, the journey to building this unshakable mental fortress is not a straight, smooth path. It is more like a mountain trail. Sometimes you are climbing steadily with clear skies, feeling strong and focused, and other times you hit a steep, rocky patch where you are out of breath, your legs ache, and the peak seems impossibly far away. It is in these moments when your mental ammunition feels depleted that the real test occurs. You might find yourself in a heated argument, and only afterwards do you realize you completely forgot the discipline of assent, reacting from pure emotion. Or you might look back over weeks of practice and feel like you have made no progress at all, that you are just as susceptible to frustration and anxiety as when you started. This is not a sign that you are failing at Stoicism. It is a sign that you are human and you are engaging in the real, messy work of growth. Acknowledging these obstacles is not admitting defeat. It is simply mapping the terrain so you can navigate it more effectively. One of the most common frustrations is the gap between knowing a principle intellectually and applying it in the heat of the moment. You can read about Amor Fati and fully agree with it while sitting in a quiet room, but when you receive a painful rejection or a project you care about falls apart, that philosophical understanding can vanish, replaced by a raw, immediate hurt. This is perfectly normal. The neural pathways of your old, reactive habits are well-worn superhighways, while the new pathways of Stoic response are still like faint deer trails in the woods. Under pressure, your brain will naturally default to the familiar route. The key is not to expect perfection, but to focus on shortening the recovery time. Instead of berating yourself for getting angry, acknowledge it and then see how quickly you can pivot. Can you catch yourself mid-outburst? Can you, an hour later, reassess the situation with a Stoic lens? Each time you do this, you are not failing. You are widening that deer trail, making it easier to find next time. When you find yourself in this state, when the principles feel distant and abstract, a powerful strategy is to have a simple, pre-prepared anchor, a go-to piece of wisdom you can cling to. This is like having a single, reliable round of ammunition that you always keep on you, even when the rest of your arsenal seems out of reach. For many, this is a short, potent quote from a Stoic philosopher that encapsulates the entire philosophy in a few words. Seneca, who understood struggle intimately, offered a perfect one for these exact moments. He wrote, "The path to wisdom is rough and difficult at first." Just bringing this phrase to mind can be incredibly soothing. It immediately normalizes your struggle. It reminds you that what you are experiencing is not a unique failure, but a universal part of the process. It is the intellectual equivalent of a seasoned climber telling you, yes, this part is tough for everyone, just keep going. Another excellent anchor could be Epictetus's opening line, "Some things are up to us and some are not." In a moment of overwhelm, this simple dichotomy can cut through the noise like a laser, instantly clarifying what deserves your energy and what you must release. Another highly effective tactic when you feel overwhelmed is to drastically simplify your focus. Trying to remember all the disciplines and exercises at once can be paralyzing. Like a musician who thinks about every single note, finger position, and breath all at the same time, it leads to a clumsy performance. Instead, choose just one principle to focus on for the entire day. When you wake up, make a conscious decision. Today, my only job is to practice the discipline of assent. I will not worry about desiring the right things or acting for the common good with perfect virtue. My sole task is to be the guard at the gate of my mind, to pause before I accept negative impressions. Or today, I will focus solely on Amor Fati. With every minor inconvenience, a spilled coffee, a delayed train, a rude comment, I will silently practice saying, "This is for my good. I love my fate. By narrowing your focus to a single, manageable practice, you reduce the cognitive load and create a clear, achievable goal for the day. This makes progress tangible, even if the day is difficult. If you manage to apply your one chosen principle just once or twice, you can count it as a success. You have strengthened that one specific muscle, and that is a genuine victory. Perhaps the most important strategy, however, and one that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of stern self-discipline, is the practice of self-compassion. Stoicism is not about becoming a harsh, unforgiving taskmaster to yourself. It is about pursuing wisdom and virtue, and wisdom tells us that growth is never linear. When you fall short, the Stoic response is not to lash yourself with criticism. That is just another passion, another negative judgment to which you are assenting. Instead, it is to treat yourself with the same reasoned kindness you would offer a dedicated student who is struggling to learn a complex skill. Would you scream at a student for forgetting a formula during a test? Or would you calmly review the material with them, acknowledging the difficulty while encouraging them to try again? This is the attitude to cultivate. View your setbacks as learning opportunities, not as moral failures. Analyze what triggered your reaction, understand why you forgot your principles, and then, without drama, recommit to the path. This compassionate, analytical approach is far more effective and sustainable than guilt, which only drains the energy you need to persevere. The goal is progress, not perfection, and progress is always built on a foundation of patience, both with the world and with yourself. This brings us to a point of clarification that is absolutely essential, one that cuts to the very heart of what it means to wield this mental ammunition effectively. There is a pervasive and damaging misconception about Stoicism that it teaches us to become emotionless robots, to suppress or eradicate our feelings in the pursuit of an icy, detached calm. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoic goal is not the absence of emotion, but the transformation of emotion. It is about using the tool of reason to alchemize what they call the passions, those destructive, overwhelming emotional storms like blind rage, paralyzing grief, or consuming envy into what we might think of as healthy sentiments. Your mental ammunition is not a shield to block feelings from entering your experience. It is the filter and the refinery that processes those feelings, allowing you to experience them fully without being hijacked by them. The ancient Stoics made a crucial distinction between a preliminary feeling, which they called a protopathos, and a full-blown passion. That initial jolt of fear when you hear bad news, that flash of irritation when someone cuts you off in traffic, that first pang of sadness at a loss, these are involuntary physiological reactions. They are not within your direct control, and the Stoics never claimed they were. They are like the initial knock on the gate of your mind. The passion, however, is what happens when you throw the gate wide open and allow that initial impression to be joined by a harmful, unchecked judgment. It is the difference between feeling a flash of anger and then spiraling into a sustained rage, where you actively assent to the belief that you have been deeply wronged and that revenge is necessary. The passion is the emotion that has been fueled by irrational thought, and it is this combustible combination that the Stoic seeks to transform. This is where your mental ammunition becomes absolutely critical. It allows you to insert a moment of conscious awareness between the initial feeling and the passionate reaction. Let's take the powerful example of anger, a subject the Roman philosopher Seneca explored in brilliant depth in his essay on anger. Seneca does not say you will never feel the initial stir of anger. Instead, he advises that the best remedy is to delay your reaction. At the first sensation of heat rising to your face, your heart beginning to pound, that is the moment to deploy your discipline of assent. You pause, you create space. You ask yourself rational questions about the impression. Is this person's action truly an intentional, malicious injustice, or could it be a mistake, a reflection of their own ignorance or pain? Is my angry response likely to improve the situation, or will it simply make things worse? By introducing reason into the emotional equation, you are not suppressing the feeling, you are preventing it from mutating into a destructive passion. You are transforming the raw, chaotic energy of anger into the clear, focused energy of a just response. Imagine a real-world scenario. You are working on a collaborative document with a colleague, and you see that they have deleted a significant portion of your work without consulting you. The initial, involuntary feeling is a hot surge of anger and violation. That is the proto-pathos. The old, untrained response might be to immediately fire off a furious message, accusing them of sabotage and disrespect. This is the passion of rage taking over. Now imagine the same scenario with your Stoic ammunition loaded. You feel the surge, but you pause. You apply your guard at the gate. You question the impression. Perhaps your colleague thought they were cleaning up an old draft. Maybe it was a simple miscommunication. Even if it was intentional, will your anger resolve the issue? You then choose a different path. You take a deep breath and write a calm message. Hi, I noticed some of my sections were removed from the document. Could we hop on a quick call to align on the approach? This is not emotionless, it is emotionally intelligent. You have transformed the destructive passion of rage into the constructive sentiment of assertive, clear communication. The feeling was acknowledged, but it was not allowed to become the commander of your actions. Seneca's work is a masterclass in this transformative process. He describes anger as a brief madness, a temporary insanity that clouds judgment and leads to actions we almost always regret. He argues that the wise person may feel the sting, but they will not let the poison spread. They will use their reason to dissect the emotion, to understand its cause, and to channel its energy toward a virtuous end. This is the profound nuance of Stoicism. It does not ask you to be cold and unfeeling. It invites you to be fully human, to experience the rich tapestry of human emotion, but with a crucial difference. You are the weaver in charge of the loom, not just a thread being tossed about by the shuttle. Your reason is the guiding hand that ensures the final pattern is one of beauty and strength, not of chaotic, tangled knots. This ability to feel deeply without being enslaved by those feelings is perhaps the most liberating application of your mental ammunition, granting you an emotional resilience that is both powerful and profoundly human. Now, while the journey of building your inner citadel is ultimately a personal one, it is a profound mistake to believe it must be a lonely one. The very nature of the discipline of action, with its focus on the common good, reminds us that we are social beings. This brings us to a vital yet often overlooked piece of the puzzle, the community of reason. Engaging with others who are walking a similar path is not a sign of weakness or a need for external validation. It is a strategic way to sharpen your mental ammunition, to test your principles against different perspectives, and to find encouragement for the long and sometimes difficult road of self-mastery. Think of it as a fellowship of blacksmiths, each working at their own forge, but occasionally gathering to share techniques, examine one another's work, and offer a helping hand when the metal is particularly tough to shape. The most accessible and timeless community is the one you can find within the pages of books. The Stoics themselves, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, are not just historical figures. They are your personal teachers, available anytime you open their works. Reading Meditations is like receiving private counsel from a Roman emperor who struggled with the same human frailties you face. Reading Seneca's letters is like having a wise, compassionate mentor guiding you through life's challenges. These books provide a constant source of external wisdom that you can internalize, a conversation across centuries that reinforces your own practice. They offer perspectives you might not have considered, and they remind you that the struggles you are facing are not new. They are the timeless trials of the human condition, met and overcome by others before you. This connection can be an incredible source of solace and strength, a reminder that you are part of a long tradition of people seeking to live a life of reason and virtue. In our modern world, this community extends far beyond the library. Online forums, social media groups, and local meet-ups dedicated to Stoicism and practical philosophy have created vibrant, global networks of like-minded individuals. These spaces serve as invaluable training grounds. You can pose a specific problem you are facing, a difficult boss, a personal loss, a crisis of confidence, and receive a dozen different applications of Stoic principle from people with diverse life experiences. One person might suggest a way to apply the view from above, while another might share a relevant quote from Epictetus that you had forgotten. This is not about seeking answers to outsource your thinking, but about seeing the philosophy applied in real time from multiple angles. It helps you break out of your own mental ruts and see your situation with fresh eyes. Having your interpretation challenged in a supportive environment is how you refine your understanding and ensure your principles are robust and well examined, not just fragile intellectual constructs. This stands in stark contrast to the allure of what we might call motivational echo chambers. These are spaces, online or offline, where the sole purpose is to generate a temporary emotional high. The content is often simplistic, repetitive, and focused solely on hype and unbridled optimism. While it might feel good in the moment, it does not provide the tools for dealing with failure, loss, or the mundane grind. It is an echo chamber because it only reflects back a narrow, amplified version of a single emotion, pumped-up enthusiasm. A community of reason, however, is built for all seasons. It is a place where you can discuss how to find courage when you are afraid, how to practice acceptance when you are in pain, and how to maintain perspective when you are overwhelmed. It is a community that supports internal development by providing external scaffolding, not by telling you everything will be easy, but by showing you that you are strong enough to handle what is difficult. The act of sharing your own insights is in itself a powerful form of learning. The Roman philosopher Seneca believed that we should learn not just for ourselves, but to teach others. When you try to explain a Stoic concept to a friend or a fellow traveler, you are forced to clarify your own understanding. You have to find the right words, anticipate questions, and make the abstract principle concrete. This process deepens your own grasp of the material far more than passive reading ever could. It turns knowledge into wisdom. So, here is a simple but profound way to actively engage with this community right now. Think of one insight from this video that resonated with you, perhaps the idea of Amor Fati, or the distinction between aiming well and hitting the target. Now make a commitment to share that single idea with one person in your life this week. It could be a conversation with a partner, a message to a friend, or even a post in an online community. By articulating the idea for someone else, you are not just helping them, you are reinforcing the ammunition in your own arsenal, making it more readily accessible for when you need it most. You are moving from being a student of Stoicism to being a practitioner, and in doing so, you strengthen the entire community of reason. All of this, the daily practice, the community support, the relentless focus on what is within our control, leads us to the ultimate destination, the very reason we embark on this path in the first place. This is not about winning a single battle or weathering a particular storm. The purpose of building your mental ammunition, of fortifying your inner citadel, is to achieve the Stoic ideal of Eudaimonia. This ancient Greek word is often translated as flourishing or a life well lived, but it points to something far deeper and more enduring than mere happiness or success. Eudaimonia is a profound and lasting state of fulfillment, a tranquility of the soul that arises from living a life of virtue and reason. It is the long game, the quiet victory that comes not from what you acquire but from who you become. Contrast this with the short-term highs of motivational boosts. A motivational surge is like a firework. It's brilliant, loud, and captivating for a moment, but it quickly fades, leaving behind only darkness and smoke. It is entirely dependent on an external spark. Eudaimonia, however, is like the steady, reliable light of the sun. It does not flare up dramatically, it simply is. It provides consistent warmth and illumination, independent of the weather or the time of day. It is a state of being that you generate from within, powered by the continuous combustion of your virtuous actions. Chasing motivation is about seeking temporary emotional states. Pursuing eudaimonia is about the gradual, deliberate construction of your character. It is the difference between wanting to feel powerful in a given moment and actually being a powerful, integrated person, capable of meeting any circumstance with equanimity. This distinction reframes the entire journey we have been on throughout this video. The goal is not to check off a list of accomplishments, though achievements may certainly come as byproducts. The goal is to become a certain kind of person, a person whose peace is unshakable because it is rooted in their own reasoned choices, not in the fickle approval of the world. It is about cultivating a mind that is orderly, a will that is aligned with nature, and a character that acts with justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance as a matter of course. When your primary aim is to become that person, then every single event in your life, every triumph and every setback becomes raw material for your growth. A promotion is an opportunity to practice humility and responsibility. A failure is an opportunity to practice resilience and learning. Even boredom becomes an opportunity to practice contentment and presence. There are no longer any irrelevant experiences. Your entire life becomes the workshop where your best self is forged. This long-term perspective is what makes the Stoic path so resilient. When you are playing the long game, a bad day, a failed project, or a period of low energy does not derail you. These are not catastrophes, they are simply data points on a much larger graph. You understand that progress is not always linear. There will be days when your mental ammunition feels low, when you forget your principles and react from old habits. But because your goal is eudaimonia, a lifelong project, you can view these lapses with compassion and clarity. You see them as part of the training, not as evidence that the training has failed. You dust yourself off, review what went wrong, and recommit to the path, knowing that the goal is not perfection tomorrow, but consistent, virtuous effort today. This takes the immense pressure off. You are no longer striving for an impossible standard of constant peak performance. You are engaged in the patient, dignified work of character building, which has its own inherent rewards at every single step. The tranquility that comes from this orientation is perhaps its greatest gift. It is a peace that does not ignore the very real pains and challenges of life, but one that meets them with a deep-seated stability. Marcus Aurelius, who faced war, plague, and betrayal, wrote beautifully about this inner stillness. He said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are consistently oriented toward virtue, reason, and the common good, your soul, your essential character takes on the color of tranquility. It is not a passive stillness, but an active, vibrant peace that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your highest principles. It is the feeling of a sailor who has mastered their craft. The sea may be turbulent, but the sailor's confidence in their own skills provides a calm center amidst the storm. This is the flourishing life. It is a life where your well-being is no longer hostage to fortune, because you have found a wellspring of purpose and peace within yourself that no external event can ever poison or deplete. This brings us to a final, powerful reflection from Epictetus, who perhaps more than any other Stoic framed philosophy as the practical art of living well. He offered a simple yet profound measure for this state of eudaimonia, saying, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This is the essence of the goal. It is not a life of having everything you want, but a life of wanting everything you have, and more importantly, everything you are. It is the joy found in the reliable operation of your own reason, the strength of your own character, and the integrity of your own actions. This joy is permanently available because it is built on a foundation that you yourself have laid and continue to maintain. The pursuit of mental ammunition finds its ultimate purpose here, in this unshakable, self-generated flourishing. It is the quiet, triumphant realization that you have, within yourself, all the resources necessary to live a life of profound meaning and unassailable peace, no matter what the world may bring. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the fundamental choice that has been unfolding throughout our journey. On one side, we have motivation, a flickering candle flame, entirely dependent on the surrounding air, easily extinguished by the slightest change in the weather of our lives. It is an external crutch, a temporary surge that feels powerful but abandons us when we need it most, leaving us stranded at the very moment we must press onward. On the other side stands your mental ammunition, the internal, stoic fortress you have been learning to build. This is not a fleeting feeling but a permanent structure, constructed brick by brick from the timeless principles of Stoic wisdom. It is the unshakable strength found in the discipline of assent, where you learn to guard the gates of your mind. It is the clear direction provided by the discipline of desire, aligning your aims with what is truly within your power. It is the purposeful engagement of the discipline of action, connecting your efforts to the common good. This fortress is further fortified by the proactive drills of Premeditation Malorum, preparing you for any storm, and powered by the transformative fuel of Amor Fati, which teaches you to find purpose not in spite of your challenges but within them. This path, the deliberate and consistent practice of stocking your mental arsenal, does not promise a life free from difficulty. What it offers is something far more valuable: genuine, unshakable strength and a profound tranquility known to the Stoics as Eudaimonia. This is not the fleeting happiness of a good day, but the deep-seated flourishing of a soul that is well-ordered and aligned with reason. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your peace is not for sale, that your worth is not on the line with every success or failure, and that your capacity to act with virtue is a resource that can never be depleted by external circumstances. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom from being a puppet jerked about by the strings of fortune, and the freedom to live as the author of your own character. The journey of 1,000 miles, as the saying goes, begins with a single step. Your journey to building this unshakable core begins not with a massive, overwhelming overhaul, but with one simple, conscious choice. So here is my call to action for you. Look back over the practices we have discussed and choose just one. Perhaps it is the nightly journaling where you review your day with calm honesty. Maybe it is the morning ritual of Premeditatio Malorum, where you mentally rehearse facing the day's potential challenges with grace. It could be as straightforward as practicing the discipline of assent the next time you feel a flash of anger, inserting that crucial pause between the impulse and the reaction. Do not try to do everything at once. Pick one practice and commit to it for the next week. Let that single action be the first brick you lay in the foundation of your own inner citadel. This philosophy of self-reliance was perfectly captured by Epictetus, who from a position of having very little external power, taught the world about true inner strength. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. Let that be your guiding light. Your freedom is not found in waiting for the world to motivate you or to give you permission to act. It is found in the quiet mastery of your own judgments, your own desires, and your own actions. That mastery is the essence of your mental ammunition." Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Stoic wisdom. If these ideas have resonated with you and you want to continue this journey of building a more resilient and purposeful life, consider subscribing to the channel for more practical philosophy. Remember, the goal is not to know everything but to start somewhere. So choose your one practice and begin building your